This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by MJ Today Media, publishers of this podcast, our flagship show, Marijuana Today, as well as the weekly podcasts Green Rush and Weed Wonks, which can be found respectively over at greenrushpodcast.net and weedwonks.com. If you have a legal marijuana product, service, or brand that you want to market to the best audience in legal marijuana, then zip me an email to learn how to get started. You can reach me at shay@mjtodaymedia.com, with Shay spelled S-H-E-A. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, February 27th, 2020, and you're tuned in to episode 893 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We return to Vermont for our top story today, as yesterday the state's House of Representatives voted 90-54 in favor of Senate Bill 54, a measure that would set up a taxed and regulated legal adult use marijuana sales program. The bill was approved on a vote by the Vermont Senate by a count of 23-5 and has a few legislative hoops to jump through, including one last vote by the House and the clearance of a few differences between the House and Senate versions before heading to the desk of Governor Phil Scott. It's not exactly clear how Governor Scott will land on this, as he's generally not in favor of any kind of progressive policy reform, but he has signaled a willingness to sign a bill with the right restrictions. Right now, one of the disparities between the House and Senate version is over the legal cannabis tax rate, with the House bill setting it at 20% and the Senate's at 16%. So we'll have to keep an eye on this one to see how it all plays out. Pop over to Eli McVeigh's story on Marijuana Business Daily for more details here. Deborah Borchard over at Green Market Report has the final top two stories today, with pickups of two major marijuana companies releasing quarterly financial results. First up, we have California-based multi-state cannabis operator MedMen, which just reported its second quarter results ending on December 28th with $44.1 million in revenue on top of a net loss of $96 million, up from the $64 million MedMen lost in the same quarter last year. The company has been struggling in recent months as a pile of scandal and lower than expected sales have pummeled their stock price, which sits around a quarter per share today, off from a high of around $3.28 a share this time last year, and an October 2018 high of $6.49 a share. Deborah's piece on this one has more numbers if you need them. Deborah's second big financial report piece looks at multi-state cannabis operator Acreage Holdings, which just reported fourth quarter results of $21.1 million in revenue, backed against a $65 million net loss, which was up more than double the $25 million the company lost in the same quarter last year. The overall net loss in 2019 seen by Acreage was $195 million, up again from 2018's loss of $32 million. Regular listeners should remember that Acreage was scooped up in a non-traditional acquisition with Canadian company Cannabis Growth that will have the deal finalized just as soon as federal prohibitions on marijuana are lifted in the U.S. Deborah is reporting that Acreage has recently had to arrange for new financing deals, including a $21 million loan from CEO Kevin Murphy, and that it's rumored to have laid off employees. This is another good one to read in full for all the important bits. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, MJ Today Media, publishers of this podcast, our flagship show, Marijuana Today, as well as the weekly podcasts, Green Rush and Weed Wonks. MJ Today Media is there for you should you need to market your own legal marijuana product, brand, service, or company, but we're also there to help should you want to produce your own industry podcast. We're a full-service podcast production company and can help you bring your creative podcasting vision to life, from show development through editing, production, and publishing. And because we already have the largest audience in the business of legal marijuana podcasting, we can help you launch your show right away to thousands of listeners. That's valuable stuff. Email me today at shay@mjtodaymedia.com to learn more about how we can help you produce your podcast, or if you just want to talk about how to become a sponsor. That's shay@mjtodaymedia.com, with Shay spelled S-H-E-A. All right, time for the Blitz. Big congrats to the nation of Canada, which ticked over in December the $1 billion mark for legal marijuana sales. That's the total since Canada flipped over to national legalization in October of 2018. The nation has had a fairly rocky rollout of adult use, with spotty implementation across the provinces, but sales in the last 2 months of 2019 were more than double the previous year, so at least the trend lines are in the right direction. Mr. Kyle Yeager over Marijuana Moments penned a nicely detailed update on how things are going in Mexico as lawmakers started working yesterday on draft legislation to legalize adult use marijuana. I reported yesterday that Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador was on board with the planned reforms, but Kyle's story pulls out some nuance to that, as Obrador said in a recent press conference that he'd like to see legalization focused on medical cannabis. If Mexico is on your industry radar, this is a story you want to read. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Utah is just a couple of days away from launching its new limited medical marijuana program, and Susan R. Miller over at New Cannabis Ventures pulled together a good comprehensive look at the program and how it came to life. It's expected that Utah's first dispensary will open for business on March 2nd, so maybe not a bad one to read in full to get yourself caught up to speed on a state we should now be hearing more from in the future. One of the benefits of having a regulated legal marijuana market is when there are issues with products being affected by contamination, there's a mechanism to let consumers know and to try to recall some of the affected items. That's what we're seeing play out with this next piece out of Nevada, as the state's Department of Taxation recently issued a public health and safety advisory warning of certain strains and batches of cannabis flower found to have failed testing for microbial contaminants. Open this one up, obviously, if you might be personally affected, but I wanted to highlight it nonetheless as a positive thing. We turn up to my corner of the country here in Maine for our final top 3 stories. That's big time for us here in Maine. Starting off, the Pine Tree State Trio is a happy headline about legal medical marijuana's new position as Maine's 3rd largest agricultural crop, coming in behind lobsters and potatoes, 2 things we're known for producing a lot of. Maine started tracking medical marijuana sales tax as a category just last year, when more than $111 million in all was sold. Maine is just a few months away from starting up legal adult use sales, so expect that number to get much, much bigger. Main story number 2 has us looking at the number of licensed testing labs set to work with the aforementioned soon-to-open adult use sales industry. That number is 0. There are a handful of licensed testing labs serving the medical market, but Maine state officials say that right now there's none cleared yet to test adult use products, though there is one company, Nelson Analytical of Kennebunk, which has an application in. That certainly could prove to be a slowing bottleneck on the launch of the state's adult use program, so another one we'll just have to keep an eye on. Our final story of the day and our last Maine-themed headline is one about the planned launch of a new state agency within the Maine DEA to conduct criminal investigations on illicit market marijuana operators. The 4-person unit will be funded with money from legal cannabis sales taxes and fees. The thing that got me about this one is a quote from a state representative in support of this very bad idea, who said that the new unit would create a quote-unquote risk premium that would scare illicit market dealers straight with threats of jail. Call me crazy, but that kind of sounds like the philosophy that got us into the whole war on drugs to begin with. Obviously, we need some kind of way to make sure people are in compliance with legal marijuana business rules and regulations, but do we really need to give police the power to criminalize things again the way they like to do? I would hope not. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, MJ Today Media, and to our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.